Perfect. Perfect. Let's get this show on the road. How about that?
Sounds wonderful.
Perfect. And hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Really excited. It's my very first podcast slash interview. My name is Jhovany. I'm from SPY Options Trading, of course. And I'm really happy and excited to introduce and welcome Lindsay Duff from Responsible Day Trading. Lindsay, for everybody hearing your name for the very first time, go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Hello, I'm Lindsay Duff with Responsible Day Trading. I don't know what should I say about myself. I've been involved with day trading for it's close to about 15 years now.
Okay.
I've seen a lot along the way, you know.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. I'll tell you what. How about you tell us how you got started in the stock market? What sparked your interest in day trading?
well, it's a little bit different probably than most people's story of how they got started. I actually have a criminal justice degree, knew nothing about day trading. I did originally want to go to school for teaching, so that's something that I do enjoy. But I was a bartender with a criminal justice degree and a recently single mom of two. And I happened to work at a restaurant where a guy that I worked with, his brother owned a company that taught people how to day trade. And little by little, they were kind of taking away the guys that were really, really smart there, and pulling them away and teaching them stuff over there. Well, I happened to corner the owner of that company one day and said, I know all the guys that you hired, and I'm way smarter than all of them, so you need to hire me.
Wow.
And I was hired less than a week later. I'd never seen a market a day in my life when I got started with them. And they sat me in a conference room for about 3 months and taught me everything from the ground up. Um, and in that time, we ended up rewriting their curriculum because the grammar was a nightmare in some of that. And I actually ended up redoing all of their videos in my voice. I guess they thought a woman's voice was a lot more pleasant for guys than a guy's voice. I don't know. And
Everybody
and
can agree with
so
you on that one.
and so whenever you know when I first got started with that company, and I'll be very honest about this, I don't believe that I should have been teaching those classes when I was. Now I look back and see that at that time I didn't, there's nothing wrong with this. And learned there's someone sitting next to me kind of feeding me the information of things I didn't know to say in these classes. And these guys were paying $16,000 to lease indicators,
Oh
okay?
my gosh.
Yeah, things like MACD and EMAs and it was insane. Okay, I didn't know it then
It's
because
wild.
I think that's why they brought us in like they did, because we were all fresh and new to the world and had no idea that, that it was, that if these guys really knew the type of people that were teaching them, had no idea what was going on. And I think some of them did, because I remember some of them talking to me about what I told them they should put in on risk. And on the Russell at the time, he's like, Lindsay, that's $400. You don't even realize what kind of risk that is on some of these accounts. So I'm like, oh, well, the risk to the reward profit, blah, 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 Um, so, so what I did is I taught the beginner class for almost a year. Twice a day, I went through the entire curriculum with new students or people who were looking to be new students. So I knew that thing like the back of my hand
It's awesome.
after a year, because I was teaching it every day, and these guys were asking me questions that I didn't really know how to answer, and I had to really think about giving them the right answer. I didn't want to give them something that was just junk. And if I didn't know it, I had to go to the owner or whoever was there and say, hey, I need to answer this question for these guys. Well, eventually I understood what I was doing, and I did end up working with 3 other companies along the way before I almost just left the whole business behind, because, you see a lot of these guys and they're more interested in stuff in their pockets than really creating profitable students.
Absolutely. So it sounds like you got started in trading by teaching it first. Sounds like that's interesting.
Isn't that crazy?
That's awesome. Actually, that's awesome. That's probably a good way of starting. Not bad. So
it is. I mean, in the beginning, I didn't have to go through that fear of losing the money.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't something that it was just like, this is just the way it goes.
Yeah.
But that came later.
Yeah, absolutely.
That came later.
Wow, amazing. And so you started with this new company, and how did you end up actually being able to place trades and make money or lose money?
Well, let's just tell you, my first ever live trade, I didn't know I was live.
Wow, that's a good thing, I think.
No, it wasn't. No. I lost so much money for the company that I was working for. He comes running in, what are you doing? I'm like, I have no idea. Because we were trading on TradeStation at that point, and we were using the order matrix, which was a nightmare to even understand how to use. That's why I love NinjaTrader, because you can trade directly on the chart.
Now, how long was this ago? How many years ago?
This was before the Russell went to the ICE exchange. Mm-hmm. So it had to have been 13 years or so ago.
Wow, okay.
12 or 13 years. Yeah, so, I'm just in there, like, not even knowing what I'm doing, just trying, because he's like, today we're going to sit you in here and you're going to be able to play with the simulator and da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, sweet. He somehow accidentally had me on a live account, and I was just clicking buttons, not even knowing what I was doing.
Wow.
And he comes running in freaking out, and he's like, thank God I had a cap on it, because it would have been $3,000 in about 15 minutes.
Okay, well, that's relatively speaking not terrible.
Terrible, but not great.
Yeah, absolutely. At least it wasn't your money, right?
Yeah, true, right? I lost my first account. It was probably a couple of years after that, my own first personal account.
Wow, amazing.
And then, because I believe, I kind of think that's a rite of passage for a lot of people. You have to lose some money in the beginning you don't have to lose money, but I think that a lot of people do, and it has a lot to do with fear and anxiety, and it has nothing to do with their understanding of how to trade the market. It has everything to do with whatever's going on between their ears,
Absolutely.
So
awesome. So you started basically teaching trading, and you accidentally placed a trade, not knowing that was your first trade, not knowing that you were actually trading. That's an interesting story.
I placed many of them, not just one. I was in there just clicking away, like, ooh, what does this do? Oh, what do we do when we do this?
that is awesome. That is awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's how organized that company was.
There you go. Too funny. So
that company is still around too.
Is it really? Wow.
Yeah.
Let's not name any names, but that's interesting to know that it's still around, and are they thriving? That's the question. Are they thriving?
I don't believe so. They used to be they were out of Texas, and we had a full office, a call center. There were like 6 or 8 educators. There was a whole sales center and everything. I mean, they were selling it for $16,000. It was, or leasing it for $16,000. But since I remember they had to sell off all the stuff, they had 8 cars, whatever, had to sell off all those, had to close down the office and go down to 2 people. And I know they moved to California, I believe, last I heard.
So it sounds like they weren't very profitable, but were they making more money, just out of curiosity, were they making more money off of their services or off of trading?
Oh, absolutely off of services.
Man, that's
Absolutely.
interesting. Interesting.
I would only see, at that time, I would only see the owner trade. And when I would kind of look over his shoulder and watch what he was doing, it was nothing like what we were teaching.
Oh, wow.
And because I think that what they were teaching and what quite a few companies teach, they teach like an idealistic trade. Like when XYZ happens, then you enter the market. Well, I've come to realize that each trade is more like a fingerprint.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm looking at 5 different charts, and each one has a little bit of the element that tells me it's time to take the trade.
Yeah.
And it never looks exactly the same. One of them may be doing one thing while another's doing another. And, the next trade, those may be giving complete opposite signals. One's doing what the other one was doing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Divergences and slowdowns and pullbacks and those type of things were
Wow.
just are put together to make that fingerprint of a trade.
I gotcha. Absolutely. Now, this kind of goes to what we're talking here. What's the first thing that the markets taught you, just in general? What's the first thing that the markets taught you?
Well, the first thing that comes to my head is patience, but really it's probably humility.
Really?
When I think I go to patience, because I should be humble, just to sit back and breathe, because what happens a lot of times is I absolutely attribute being able to trade into like you have to harness everything. You can't be your mind can't be in 15 different places. I mean, sometimes it can, especially if you're not going to put on, if you're sitting there staring at it so much that your face is just up in the screen and you can't sit back and just breathe and see the bigger picture. You're too much into each little movement.
I struggle with that.
And I do too as well sometimes, and I'll catch myself as I'm doing it. Like I'll pull down to get into the trade, and I'm like, wait a second, I'm not being patient enough. I need to sit back. I need to wait. And sometimes when that happens, I still miss the trade because it'll take off because I convinced myself I'm not being patient enough. But in the same breath, I don't care. I'll let that one go. I never, ever feel like I miss out when I don't take a trade.
That's a good point. That's a good thing to think about. I struggle with that myself. I get into trades. Basically, the term is FOMO, fear of missing out. And I have to constantly tell myself, no, this isn't your trade, or I get up and start doing something just to get me out of that idea that I have to take this trade. And it's a little bit different for me, especially since I'm recording and the YouTube channel and whatnot. I actually think about that as well, and I have to stop doing that. Trading first, and then my YouTube channel second, kind of thing. Absolutely. And then because you do have a mentor service, that's a lot of pressure that you can put on yourself.
Big time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you may be afraid of taking the wrong thing or something like that, and you can't think that way.
You start forcing yourself.
Then it becomes a show at that point, and it doesn't become about what I'm paying attention to. It's like, what can I show other people that I can do? And it's like, no, Lindsay, sit back. Who cares if you miss that trade? Who cares if you lose a trade, especially if you took it for a good reason and you managed it properly? If you took it for a good reason and it doesn't work out, you did the right thing still. You can't predict everything that's going to happen. The market's run by millions of people, and and it's all their emotions and their thought processes. And that's the one place, I think I told you this before, the market is the one place where you don't want to stand out. It's the place where you want to be in the crowd, you know?
Good advice. Good advice.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's
but it's also, you got to pay attention, you know?
Oh, no, absolutely. The market is a vicious place. It's a vicious tool to use. You gotta learn to
Don't think of it that way. Don't think of it as
Okay.
vicious, you know?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
but it's just it's a pattern. You're watching these patterns happen over and over again, and you can see when it's slowing down and pulling back and giving you enough time. Sometimes it gives you enough time to get in, sometimes it doesn't. But you know, with those patterns, I have to evaluate what my risk is going to be, and if my risk is going to be way too big, then I just let it go. You know, I've chased it a couple times. I mean, I'd be lying if I said I didn't. You know, and they're like, oh crap, my risk is not where it's supposed to be, but I'm just gonna let it go.
That is why you're a professional trader and I am not. I struggle with that so much. And I that's the part of trading that I have yet to figure out, and that's amazing when you can do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, basically, you want to put your risk where you don't want the market to go, right?
Yeah.
And you also want to make sure that that risk is worth whatever it is you're going to get out of it. So if you have a good profit potential, or you have an idea of where it may stop, you know, you've hit the support area 3-4 times and it's pulling back and going back towards it again. Okay, when I get to the support area, I'm solid. I'm going to get out no matter whether it goes or not. Awesome. Or at least take my first target out, move the second one to a break even, and let it run.
Wow, amazing. Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about your morning routine as a day trader. What is it? Do you do something every day the same way? How do you prepare for the day?
It's not the same every day, because I'd like to say I'm a creature of habit, but I'm also a rebel. So I don't like to be pushed into a box. So I mean, I get up in the morning about 15 minutes before I got to take my daughter to school. Take her to school, you know, make sure, hey, did you brush your teeth? Did you eat? Let's go. It's time. You know, drop her off. And then I come back, and sometimes I do a little bit of meditation. I try and get, if I don't just do straight meditation, I definitely work out before, because it helps me with clarity. You know, if I'm working out before. When I don't work out before, I struggle. It's sluggish. My thought process isn't on point. I mean, I can do it, but it's just almost like a meditation too, you know. The meditation is big for me. And even if it's just 5 minutes, even if it's just sitting and breathing and picturing and telling myself, you know, okay, today, you know, we need to just breathe through things. We need to be patient. If the right setups happen, I'm going to be aware of it. If they don't, I'm going to let them go. I'm going to paying attention is what I tell myself all the time. And then I trade and sometimes I trade in the afternoons. Sometimes I've been trying to make more of a habit of just doing the mornings so that I have the rest of the afternoon because, you know, just as well as I do, making these videos sometimes can take a little bit of time.
Absolutely.
Just uploading it alone takes like 45 minutes sometimes. I'm like, oh, mercy.
Yes. Absolutely.
Well, and I've gotten to where I started editing mine a little bit more, because I know on YouTube people don't really want to watch an hour and a half long video.
Yeah.
You know? So I try and take it down to just 10 minutes, so it's just seeing my trading. And then, you know, like I said, I'm starting the vault on my channel, or on my website, to where I'm going to have the entire video on there for my students. And I think I used to kind of just sit and watch and not say a lot, but I'm trying to put a lot more education into those videos, so the thought process is a lot easier to see.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, so viewers can actually see what you're thinking, why you're doing certain things and whatnot. Absolutely, that's very helpful when you put that into your videos. And you're right. You know, who wants to watch, you know, long, you know, drawn out video recording of us just looking at the markets, just staring at things go up and down, up and down. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's all good things there. Let's move on to your sort of trading strategy, your methodology. I want to start off by asking you first, so viewers at home know, what do you primarily trade and why?
Just mostly the EMA and the S&P. I just haven't ventured out a whole lot. I've looked at the other markets. I've actually, helped students find the right charts that they need for them, because, on some of them you're not going to need a 10-9-46 chart. You're going to need something more along the lines of a 55 tick chart, depending on how fast or slow these move. But I guess, when, like I said, we started off with the Russell, and when the Russell moved to the ICE exchange, we moved over to the E-mini S&P. And I pretty much just stuck there ever since. I actually was sitting there thinking the other day, like, maybe I'll venture out into some other markets. I mean, in reality, they all move the same, Yeah. It's just a matter of what chart sizing you need. And I'm big on Fibonacci numbers. I use Fibonacci religiously when it comes to my tick charts and my indicators. So they're Fibonacci numbers that are in the settings of those. Okay. And I have them connected in a way that one indicator, the small EMA on one chart, is the large EMA on the next chart. So they're all connected when they're like that. But and you can do that with other markets. And so I'm looking. I've been looking at them a little bit, and I guess I'm just comfortable with the ES at this point more than anything.
So it has nothing to do with like volume or volatility. It has nothing to do with that. It has more so to do with what is Lindsay more comfortable trading, seems like.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Really more than anything.
With that being said, you mentioned tick charts. I don't know much about tick charts at all. What are tick charts, and why do you trade with tick charts?
Well, tick charts, and I have looked at other charts, and John, I see you on there. I'll have those videos. I promise you. They should be. I'm hoping to have them next week. It's just a lot of editing. But tick charts are, we're using tick bars. And so each bar represents that, say you're using a 610 tick chart, each bar in there represents that 610 transactions that's taken place. And it's not time related, it's not volume related, and whenever that transaction, when that 610th transaction, and that transaction could be one contract, it could be 1,000 contracts. It's just the one transaction. You use the MACDs to see more of the difference in the volume. But that one transaction, when it's done, it counts down to 0. It plots a little dot on that bar, and then it starts, which is another EMA, that dot on the bar, and then it starts the next bar. So to me, it shows more real time than anything. I have used minute charts in the past. We used the 5 and the 15-minute chart, but I don't care for them as much. I feel like I don't get as much of a real time of what's happening. And pullbacks aren't as noticeable for me. The slowdowns with pullbacks aren't as noticeable for me whenever I'm looking at other types of bars or charts.
That's interesting. Very interesting. I've heard of tick charts, and then obviously from watching your videos, I've seen them, but I've never even thought about pulling up a tick charts by any means. Probably worth definitely incorporating that into my own strategy. That's awesome.
Well, and you do have to be careful. I'll be honest with you. You have to be careful with those. The smaller the tick chart gets, because it moves so fast. The way I explain it to my students is none of the charts are going to quote unquote lie to you, right?
Yeah.
It's just going to be a much quicker movement. So I look at the small charts like little children running around the feet of the gentle giants, which is what I call my big charts, my 10, 9, 46, they're all going in the same direction, just the little charts are running circles around the feet of the big charts,
Yeah, I got
And yeah, so it may change direction a bunch, so you have to be careful that you're not trying to trade always in the direction of the smaller chart. It may be giving signals for, not necessarily giving signals, but it may have shifted our bias to the downside on a 55 or a 233 or a 610. But if I look at my 10,946 and my 4181 and my 1597, which is my trading chart, is my 1597, I do kind of go back and forth between the 1597 and the 4181. Because the bigger the chart, the stronger the areas. But when I'm watching those, it may be that the direction is showing down on my smaller charts and up on my larger charts, and the movement should be to the upside. It's just pulling back and being ready to snap back into that area. So
interesting.
That's
so
what I have to pay attention to those.
It sounds like it works just like time duration, like a regular candlestick chart where the 5-minute, 10-minute might conflict with one another, but
Yes.
the actual trend is, say, the 15-minute chart. Okay, so it works pretty much the same, it sounds like. Interesting.
Right, and I have to be careful too with even my own wording and my thought process when I am looking at the trend. Excuse me, because the overall trend may be to the downside, but the move is now showing us divergences and reversal bars and pulling really far away from the areas, and I look at those as magnets to snap back. So the overall trend may have been to the downside, but we know it's coming to an end. The problem with that, and people have to be careful, is that they'll continuously look for the reversal to be the first one in to go the opposite way. And
yes.
Yeah. So you have to start training yourself to not take each little reversal, maybe even wait for it to start moving in that area and wait for the smaller charts to give you a lower risk entry to get in, a tiny little pullback to get in on it,
This brings up an interesting question. I was going to ask you this anyways, but you mentioned reversal. What type of trader are you? Are you a reversal trader, scalper, trend trader? What do you primarily look for?
I like to say that I flow with the market.
All right.
I used to consider myself a trend trader. Absolutely. Okay. I used to always look for the pullbacks we used mid-bands with the Keltner channel at that time. And I've worked with quite a few companies that use the mid-band and the Keltner channel, which the mid-band is the 52 EMA, the smaller EMA on all of my charts. So I used to look at that religiously, like it pulled back to it, it touched it, it's above it, it's going to go up, right? Okay. Not paying attention to the MACD saying, we're going to smash through this area, So I would keep the trend is going up, it's going up. And so it pulled back into that area, and blindly you would get in because that was what I was taught to do. Okay, well, we're pulling back to this area. It's touched it. You should already have a limit order waiting there and get in, or whatever it may be. And I'm just like, no. I was losing too much doing that. It felt like I was losing more than I was winning doing that. So I try not to think of myself as, do I trade with the trend or against the trend? I try and think of, okay, what is it telling me, which direction it's going right now, and where is my next possible area for a bounce if I'm going to take a short trade? Where am I going to look for this to bounce it back up? So I have to evaluate how far I have to my next area. Okay. And if I have the balls to take it at that time, because sometimes if it's a very quick one, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do it. It's too fast for me. It's not enough space. I need some more space to run. I need like 4 or 5 points, not 2, in between that and the next spot,
Absolutely. No, I completely get it. So that brings up to sort of another question as far as your profit, your take profit. What are your targets in trying to? Are you trying to make 5%, 10%, 20%, or does that fluctuate?
It absolutely fluctuates. I never, ever, ever, ever try and think about how much I need to make in a day. Because if I do that, if I think, oh my gosh, today I've got to walk out of here with 4 points, I'm going to walk out with a losing day is what's going to happen.
Gotcha.
Because I'm trying to make it happen.
Yeah,
Okay?
I gotcha.
I know guys who have a 2-point goal each day. I think that's not a bad goal to have. My first target is always set at 2 points. My second target is always set at 3, but I always move the second target further, usually.
It's funny that you explain it in points. Explain to me what do you mean points whenever you're thinking about trading?
Sorry, I'm thinking, yeah, the E-mini S&P 2 points is $100.
There you go.
So it's $50 a point. So I'm looking for, most people are looking to start off making $100 a day. So my first target is set at $100. My second target is set at $150. So it's set at 3 points.
Okay.
Once I hit my first target, a good majority of the time, I move my stop to a break even. If it's in a bad area where, I say where you want the market not to go, well, where the markets could still go back and still push in that direction, sometimes I'll wait a little bit longer to move it.
Okay.
I do hover over a close button. So if it is pushing, say it's taking my first target out and it's pushing up and I can tell it's not going to quite make it to my next target and it starts pulling back, I may go ahead and hit close. Because, if you move the risk up and you move that risk to the same spot that the price is, it won't let you close it out. You have to be one tick behind there.
Oh, wow.
And so you may find yourself just moving one tick more. Oh, crap. So I just hit the close button.
Interesting. Okay. So it's almost like talking about spreads. Well, in my trading, I talk about spreads, getting into like an option. The spread might be 5 cents between the bid and ask. Is that somewhat what you're talking about?
You mean, so you're saying it's 5 cents between where you're looking to get in and where you're looking to get out?
The spread in, for example, the bid and ask of the actual contract, or, if you're trading the underlying stock, the bid and ask could be a lot different. Sometimes it could be 5, sometimes it could be 10 cents, depending on the volatility. I'm talking about options here, but when you're talking about exit,
I don't trade options. I haven't worked with options ever really, so I'm
really
sorry
interesting. Yeah.
No, I mean I have really only worked with E-mini S&P, NASDAQ. I've seen some. It's just all futures markets that I've worked with.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, because I have trouble with this myself.
Okay.
How do you handle a losing streak?
Well, so a losing streak for me is never more than 3 trades. So if I trade more than 3 trades, if I trade 3 trades and they are losing in a row, then I know that I'm not paying attention to what's going on. So I stop at that point.
Interesting. You're saying maybe you're losing because, not necessarily because of your strategy or methodology. It's more so like a mental thing.
100%.
Wow. That's
yes.
That's awesome. That's wow.
Because it tells me that I'm not paying attention. Because if I was paying attention, there's no. Okay, so the most I've had in a row in a very long time is 2 losing trades. Because once I get to my third, I'm done for the day, and I haven't had it done for the day in quite some time.
Wow.
But those first 2, sometimes I'm like, okay, I got in a little bit early. Chase that one just a little bit. I'm waiting for the right moment now. Now I'm like, okay, I can see what I'm doing, and I try not to really evaluate my trades while I'm still trading. But now I can look at it and go, okay, Lindsay, you're not paying attention. You got in a little bit early. You need to wait for that pullback. Wait, because I'm all I'm always waiting for a pullback.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always waiting for some sort of either roll off the zero line in the MACDs, not necessarily the zero line. Sometimes it's higher or lower. Sometimes there's a lot of distance to the zero line. Or I'm waiting for a pullback with something like divergence, which you're familiar with divergence, right? When
Yes.
the price and the MACDs are one's telling you up, the other one's telling you down. Or retracement divergence. Are you familiar with retracement divergence?
No, I'm not.
Oh, retracement divergence is amazing. So it's like when they both pull back. So say both the price and the MACDs both pull up, but the price pulls up almost, say 75% of the original move, and the MACDs only pull back 25% of the original move.
Okay.
The MACDs are like, oh, coughing, getting up there like, nope, we're not doing this, and coming back down. So those are big. Those with reversal bars, pretty much my bread and butter, my jam.
Well, you keep saying the MACD, the MACD, the MACD. Obviously, you trade with the MACD. Any other indicators that you can tell us that you trade with?
I have the MACD, moving average convergence divergence, if anybody doesn't know what that means. And even that is still a mouthful. And I use 2 EMAs, well, 3 EMAs if you include the close on the bar.
Gotcha.
Right now I currently have 2 MACDs because I was getting one of my students set up with his charts, and he's like, well, here's the MACD that I found. I don't know why he didn't, because I have the MACD on my website. I mean, it's free for anybody to go and pull it off and look at it, right?
Awesome.
But he couldn't. Well, I have the MACD. I actually have how you set up your charts like mine absolutely free on my website, so no one has to you can go and just learn how to use NinjaTrader for the first 6 videos and never look at my stuff again, which is cool. I hope it helps people,
No, absolutely.
So he actually had another MACD that I'd never seen before, and it was just the way the dots change colors differently, and I fell in love with it. Like, immediately I was like, what is this? And so I actually have both the MACDs on my charts now. If I could find a way to overlay those in the way that I want them to overlay, I would just have one. But they both change colors, and both of them have significance when they change colors. And I just use that, and I use 2 exponential moving averages. Okay. Well, 3, like I said. Yeah. The third one is the close on the bars, and that's just a 1 EMA. That's all that is.
Oh, wow.
So that's all it is. It's a 1 EMA, and then we use a 55 and a 144 EMA, and that's it.
Wow, alrighty. Wow, the 1 EMA. I've never heard anybody using a 1 EMA. That's interesting. Yeah. That's something new. Let's see here. I wanted to ask you, who do you trade with? Who's your broker? What do you use as your platform?
So I'm using NinjaTrader for the platform, and I'm using Dorman as my broker.
Gotcha. Did it take you trying out many brokers before you found the one?
No, I just used what NinjaTrader had, and it was, after being in the business the way I was for so long, I mean, I did sales for a couple of companies, I did education for a couple of companies, I did sales and education for a couple of companies that I'm pretty sure a lot of people here have heard of, and we'll just set them aside for now. but I was extremely lucky, blessed, whatever you want to call it, that I was able to come in the way that I did, because I got to see everything from the back end. Everything.
Yeah.
I got to see where different brokers people had used. I got to see all the mistakes that different traders had made. I was asked to write lessons of stuff. I had to just look at this and go, okay, what's a lesson I need to learn from this today? What is something that I can teach other people? Well, I mean, we were teaching each other in the as the educators. Mm-hmm. We were having to learn lessons and say, okay, and then having to go back and find 500 examples of it working out, mm-hmm. and understanding how that worked together, and things like some stuff that I use in my curriculum absolutely right now, like when the price pulls too far away from the MACDs, when the price pulls too far away from the EMAs, how those EMAs work like a magnet and it's going to snap back to it. And the same thing happens in the MACDs. That's actually how I fell in love with the MACDs, because I realized that they are the only indicator that are real time. You know, everything else is lagging. Everything else is off. All the EMAs and all that, it's off of what's happened the last 100 bars, whatever, X amount of bars, right?
Yeah.
The MACDs create a BB for each price bar that is being printed. So that BB is in real time with that price bar. And you don't get that with many other indicators. And they also told me that the MACDs were hardest for people to understand, divergences and things like that. And I'm like, we're changing that. Yeah. We're going to make this easier for people. So
MACDs, and I'm making notes for myself too in my trading. This is very helpful.
So they all came up with nicknames with people at one point in time, right?
What was yours?
Mine was the Mac Diva.
Mac Diva. Hey, that's pretty good. Not bad. Not bad.
Yeah.
Should put that as like your Skype name or something.
Mac Diva.
Something like that. Or your license plate, something.
Oh, Lord.
Too funny. All right. Let's see. I wanted to ask you, again, like these are things that I struggle with myself. I'm sure a lot of people struggle with this as well, but how do you deal with, well, before I ask you this, how much do fundamentals and news events weigh in on your trading strategy? Let's start there.
As for news, I don't think about it too much. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, so I want to know when something like, you know, when we have FOMC coming out, mm-hmm. when we have big news, it's nice to know. The companies that I worked with in the past would tell people that you need to be out 5 minutes before news and 5 minutes after news. And what I realized along the way is that really what was happening is that the market usually continued in the same direction if you kept your risk in the same spot. You wouldn't even notice news happened most of the time, depending on the size chart that you were using. Mm-hmm. Now, if you've got something like FOMC, that used to move the market so big and it would slow down before, so you'd want to know. And you need to know when contract rollover is going to happen and, mm-hmm. and things like that. So I do take a look at news. I only look at news that affects the U.S. dollar, and I only look at high impact news.
Yes, absolutely. I religiously go on forexfactory.com to look at upcoming events or news pieces or whatnot, and of course, high impact news. And I'm one of those traders that if there's news coming out set to come out at 10 o'clock Eastern time, I'm not in a trade. I'd rather not be in a trade.
Right.
And you know, again, in my head, I'd rather not go there. I'll just wait. I'm okay with waiting till after the news piece comes out. It's just my preference, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, you know, that I love about what we do here is that it doesn't matter which direction the market's going. You can make money whether it's going up or down.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you'll be amazed how many people don't understand that you can short the markets. I mean, I know people that know that, but they think it's too risky. They don't understand.
You make more money when it's going down because it goes down fast.
Absolutely.
And I know that sounds kind of almost like, you know, morbid. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, I love when the market's dropping, but, you know, we're not expecting it to drop down to zero. It's going to come back up. It's just, you know, and if you look at the market over the last 4 years, it's done nothing but go up. Of course, it gets pullbacks, but then it just goes up, up, up. I think in the last couple of weeks, you know, we've seen more down than we've seen in the last couple of years.
And with that being said, you know, just the slightest hint of a bear market, everybody goes crazy. And as day traders, we're over here, you know, come on, bring it on. Like that's where we make the most money. Absolutely. With that, I wanted to ask you, How do you deal? You mentioned that you meditate. But how do
Hmm.
you deal with the emotional aspect of trading? All of my subscribers definitely know and seen my videos that I have. That's probably the biggest issue that I have is the emotional aspect of trading. Realizing that hey, it's just money basically, right? But how do you
Right.
deal with emotional aspect of trading?
There's all different kinds of ways. It really is a mind, body, and soul situation for me. Mind, body, soul, and finances. That everything needs to be working towards something better.
Mhm.
Um, that I don't beat myself up over trades because I can't make the market do what I want it to do. And when I realize that anything in my life, when I'm trying to force it, I take a step back and have to look at it and say,
Mhm.
okay, what's going on in my head that I'm trying to force this? And that's where I came to the, 3 trades in a row that I'm not paying attention. I'm trying to force something,
Mhm.
because the market may be flat and
Mhm.
I'm trying to make things that aren't actually there.
Mhm.
And I find myself whenever I do that in having to apologize for things that I may say out of line sometimes. Come back and say, okay, I watch my videos. I do. I watch my videos and say, okay, where can I improve a little bit on this? And I'll listen to what I say to myself. I've told all my students, you should film yourself because you'll hear what you say to yourself.
Mhm.
And there'll be times that I'll mumble under my breath, like, man, that's so stupid. Why would you do some shit like that? And then it's like, whoa,
Yeah,
listen to what you're doing. You're making this about you. It's
that's
not about you,
that is
you
such
know?
a good, actually, that's a good sort of habit to get into. Not just obviously because we're recording our videos to put them on YouTube, our trading to put them on YouTube, but you should be doing that yourself at home. Just
Yes,
record yourself, record
yes.
your screen and something to play back. And so you have, something to go back and say, you know what,
It's your
I could,
journal.
yeah, there you go.
It's your
That's
journal.
absolutely, absolutely big advocate.
Because, you will forget things
Mhm.
about why you took trades.
Mhm.
You'll forget about the way you felt during it. You will have felt, maybe in the morning you were on top of the world and you took a trade or two that sucked. The next thing you knew, you were revenge trading and you're 15 points in the hole or whatever it may
Mhm.
be.
Mhm. Absolutely.
And then you may just wipe that from your memory and be like, that didn't happen. Let's
Mhm.
start over fresh and new tomorrow. And it's okay to start over fresh and new tomorrow, but really evaluating what you did and why you did it makes all the difference in the world. You got to look back and say, okay, why? Why
Mhm.
did I do this? Why did I get, and I've been looking at other traders' charts for so long. I really can look at it and be like, oh, you got really mad in that part, didn't you, right there? I can see because you clicked the button like 15 times. Why did you even press the button there? I call that
Absolutely.
the click it and say a prayer method, and
Oh
that
my
just doesn't
goodness.
work.
Too funny.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, we're pretty much winding it down here, but before we start the Q&A section, if anybody has any questions, I want to ask you, what does it take to become a full-time day trader?
Confidence in
Confidence.
yourself.
Hmm.
You have to have confidence in yourself because, well, there's so much really that goes into it. Confidence is the first thing that comes to my head, but you can be confident and still take a lot of bad trades, right?
Hmm.
Um, so you have to have patience. You have to, okay. Number one, don't think about the money. The minute you start thinking about the money is the minute you start handing it over. I mean, whether if you have a great day and then the next day sucks, it's all about the money.
Hmm.
Like, oh man, I made so much money today, and the next day, like, oh, I'm terrible, I lost all this money.
Hmm.
So you got to not think about the money, and you really have to think, what is the right thing to do right now? What is it telling me? Am I looking at just one signal and trying to go with that? Or am I looking at, everything telling me that it's pushing in this direction, and then having the confidence to pull the trigger at the right time? But in that same breath, having the confidence to pull the trigger at the right time comes with experience of losing a lot. Mm-hmm. You have to learn from that stuff. You have to take trades that don't win, and you have to do that in simulation. A lot of people just try and go in like, I'm just going to throw some money at this, and next thing you know, they've lost everything, and they go, oh, I'm a terrible trader, and really they just didn't learn everything they needed to know before they got started.
Gotcha. Absolutely. Well, awesome. Thank you for that. And I guess you kind of answered this question along with that, but what is your number one piece of advice that you have for, let's say, beginner traders?
Oh, it's definitely don't think about the money.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
That would be like, someone just starting out fresh and new as starting out at the bottom of the barrel at a business, right? You're starting out at the bottom, and eventually you want to make your way to the top. But if you just think about the money to get you to the top, that's not going to do it. You got to think about the time and the care and the maintenance and the practice and the learning and the understanding of the company to become that top dog. There's a lot more. I mean, I do a lot of reading. I listen to, Tony Robbins. I have a lot of books that I listen to along the way that are things that are just about being centered, being in the now, and learning to just, pay attention every day.
Gotcha. All righty. Well, you guys all heard off from Lindsay Duff here, but before we let you go here and we start the Q&A, I want to talk about the services that you offer, your mentorship and whatnot. Tell us a little bit about that. What comes with the package, so to speak?
Yeah, so I do have a full written and video curriculum. It does start at the very beginning of how you set up NinjaTrader and all that, and then we go into what is a tick, what is a tick bar, what is, what are EMAs, what do we need to know about the EMAs, and then what do we need to know about the MACDs. Now, how do we put these together? Okay. I am continuously working on it. I don't think it's something that I could just be done with ever. Mm-hmm. I think there should always be new videos coming in. If a student has an issue understanding something in particular, I'm like, let me know. I'll make another video because maybe there's 15 other students that don't understand that either. I mean, it's been a long time since I put fresh new eyes on that type of thing, right?
Yeah.
So it may have been a long time since I thought about, I don't know, reversal bars or whatever it may be, and maybe you need a little bit more input to that. Mm-hmm. When I work with my students, I have homework that they complete and they email to me, and I do a very thorough rundown of their homework. If they don't understand one of the concepts that I want them to do homework over, then I'll spend 20 minutes on that video going through, showing, here's the example, here's what it needs to look like, this is what you're missing, mm-hmm. and send that to them so they have that forever. Mm-hmm. And then we do, once they're ready to get to, they're ready to pull the trigger, then at that point, you start saying things like, let's go through, or at that point we start going through hour-long sessions, and we go through their trades, we go through whatever it is they need to go through, and we record that, and I send that to them too. So
awesome. You care about your students. That's the important part.
Yeah, I really do. I'm a people person to begin with, and I love people, and I think that a lot of people don't give themselves enough credit for how intelligent they are. And I really try and build them up as they're going through it, saying, like, you do understand this. Let's go through this part, and we work off their strengths also, and we build on their weaknesses.
Awesome.
Because I do not believe that everybody needs to trade like me. I may be looking for a short trade while one of my students is looking for a long trade, and we're both correct.
Wow.
Because one of us may be looking for the pullback while the other one's looking for the push,
Absolutely.
And you just got to know where to make that limit of, okay, where's my target? Where should it be? When's the slowdown happening? Those type of things.
Absolutely. I want to note anybody interested in looking at Lindsay's website. I put a link down in the description below. Learning more about the way that she trades or looking to get into her mentorship, there's a link down below. I want to get, and I don't mean to cut you off here, but time restricted here.
Yeah, no.
I
told you, we can talk forever.
That's absolutely fine. Clint.
And real quick, if anybody has questions outside of this, I'm a pretty easy person to get in touch with. I will never turn you away for questions, so if you got them, I'll help you for sure.
Awesome. There you go. You have a question there, Lindsay, in the chat box. Do you see it?
I do. Awesome. And I was reading it just a second ago.
Okay.
Do I think it's wise to set a percentage goal or a dollar amount per week, per day or week to trade? I think that I think your second part, being positive and making good trades is more important than making the money, because if you're positive every day, or if you're at least making those good decisions every day, then you are really able to, that money is going to be there. It's going to collect. It's going to come. So it's more important, because when you set those goals, it's almost idealistic. Oh, yeah, I'm going to make $1,000 per week, and as a beginner, that's not realistic. As a beginner, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. So you start to beat yourself up over that because you think, well, I can't make this goal because you're still struggling to understand everything. As time goes by, some days I may make 1.25 off of two contracts. Other days I'm making 15, 17 points, and they average out eventually. But if I go, okay, I made 1.25 and I'm done for today. Today I can feel it. I'm miserable. My brain isn't on point, whatever it may be, and I step away. And I'm proud of the fact that I made 1.25, off of two contracts.
Good deal.
So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anybody else have any questions now that we have Lindsay's full attention here? Anybody else, any other questions at all? I know there's a delay, I think, in the feed, so we'll just let this go through for just a little bit longer here. But thank you so much, Lindsay. Greatly appreciate.
No problem.
Very wise words today. I'm going to look into tick charts now.
Awesome,
Yeah, actually,
Clint.
me too, Clint. I'm very interested in how tick charts actually work. Maybe there's something there, something to think about. So,
and if y'all need, if you're using NinjaTrader 7, and you go to the website, under the beginning section is all NinjaTrader and how to set up those tick charts. And you can, if you're using 8, it's a little bit different, but it's pretty easy. I've already looked into 8, so it's fairly the same. It's just you got to know where the actual selections are on the chart. But if you have questions about them, I've got people who I don't even know who send me messages all the time on Facebook about charts, and I'll spend a few minutes with them, getting them, on the right track, and we usually become friends after that. So.
Awesome. Well, that's just wrapping it up here, guys. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in.
Yeah,
and
thanks,
thank you so much, Lindsay, for your time. Greatly appreciate it. Actually hearing a real day trader here. No gimmicks. no Lambos in the background. You don't
No.
have any of that.
Definitely no Lambos in the background.
You're a real
There was
day
a
trader.
16-year-old who walked in who tried to talk to me for a minute, but that was about it.
That's what I love. That's what I love about this is you're not, you're trading from your home. You have kids. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah.
No gimmicks here. So everybody thank Lindsay here, Duff, for her
John.
time.
That's one of my
appreciate
students
it.
actually right there.
Awesome. There we go.
Mr. Pie down there.
Oh yeah, there you go. 3.15, absolutely. Pie.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Again, there's links down in the description down below if you're interested. So we'll see you here again next time. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye.